Hello, Cool9 here for another Topic of the Week video. This week we take a look at Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. The topic was submitted by Angel89, and she asked, what makes Azula such a great character that is both frightening, diabolical, enjoyable, and tragic? Do you think that they hit all the right marks with her? Was there any nitpicks you had regarding her? I really like Azula as a villain. I love chess master type villains. I love smart villains. I love villains that aren't just, stupid, I'm going to take over the world and I will kill you. Villains who are smart enough to know, hey, you know what, sometimes retreat is actually a good idea. My favorite villain of all time is still Albert Wesker. So, obviously, I really enjoy those types of smart villains. So, of course, I would love Azula. Now, Azula is a very complex character, and it's kind of hard to talk about her without going into all the little sections of her personality. Because Azula, talking about being frightening and diabolical, she's only like 14. And she's a brilliant strategist, at least in terms when it comes to manipulating people. She took over the Dai Li, days after she came into Ba Sing Se? Days? She always was pressing Zuko's buttons, and she knew how to manipulate him, especially at the end of Book 2. Oh gosh, the end of Book 2 where she got him to betray everyone, because they would have lost. She would have lost had Zuko not betrayed them. And I know that, at least between the fight between her and between Azula and Katara was just destroying Azula until Zuko stepped in. But she knows how to manipulate people, and even being so young, that's terrifying. I mean, that kind of manipulation is terrifying anyway. Someone knowing how to prick people and, just put these ideas in their head and lead them to doing exactly what they want with mere suggestion is terrifying. But being so young makes it even more frightening. She definitely serves a lot of roles, and mainly the one that I like is the foil she serves to Zuko. In almost every way, she opposes Zuko. While she was the favored child, the prodigy, who's so powerful her flames are blue, Zuko wasn't. Zuko was a kind of a bumbling idiot when it came to that sort of thing. It took him a lot of training and a lot of time to actually get to the point where he could challenge Azula, as we see in the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender. When after he's matured and he's trained, he's gotten to the point where I don't know if he has sheer strength that she does in terms of firebending, but he was still a match for her, to the point where she actually had to cheat and basically cheat. It was cheating. It was an Agni Kai. So yeah, she cheated and attacked Katara because she knew she couldn't straight up win. If anything, it was going to be a tie. So yeah. And in the ways that she never had to work for anything, whereas Zuko had to work for everything. And this actually shows us a lot about both characters, and this is one of the reasons why she cracked at the end of the series and just completely fell apart. She's had everything handed to her. She's never had to actually work for anything. It's like the child in school when you're super smart at everything, but when you actually reach a point where you need to actually try to do something, you fail because you've never actually had to try before. You've been able to rely on sheer ability. So when she's faced with the idea that, well, you're actually not that favored by me from Ozai, she just starts losing it. And and one of the things that was introduced, I believe it was introduced in the beach episode, which seems like it's pure filler, but it actually does give us a nice little tidbit into Azula. She has a lot of issues regarding Ursa. And this is something that isn't brought up too much, but it's something that's mentioned a few times, especially in the beach episode. I can't remember what that episode was called. But she basically says, my mother saw me as a monster. She was right, of course, but still, I think she said it still hurt. But yeah, I mean, she tries to hide her weaknesses, which is one of the reasons why, and again, it's not something, she's never really had to show weakness. She never really had a time where she would show weakness. So when she's confronted with the time when she actually is exposing a weak point, her insecurities with Ursa, she has to, play it off immediately. Like, oh, no, of course, yeah, no big deal. But we see in the finale, she actually hallucinates Ursa telling her that she loved her. And that drove her nuts, because she thought Ursa hated her. Probably because, there was always this competition between her and Zuko. Everything had to be with verses, and it had to be either or. Honestly, Ursa loved Zuko. She loved him so much. She killed a freaking Fire Lord for him. But I do not, and I'm sure she was upset that what Ozai did to, his influence on, or what she saw growing up, his influence on Azula. We know that the Fire Lord family was happy when they were little, when they were younger at one point, but I'm sure as time went on, Ursa did start seeing Azula start exhibiting, her sociopathic tendencies. And probably Ozai, especially, Ozai probably got more and more radical. And I mean, I actually would be interested in seeing before. I really wanted to see that time when they were happy, because we never actually see that. We only see the confrontations, because all that stuff is plot relevant. And this is what makes her really tragic, is that she does have this massive insecurity. She always has to be the best, always, all the time. She always has to come out on top. When she doesn't, she cracks. And this is one nitpick I do have, is her weaknesses in that regard weren't shown as much as they could have been. I mean, her fall into insanity was, I always felt, even after rewatching it, was a little sudden. I mean, and I have more issues with this than I do with the lion turtle. The lion turtle, I really don't have much issue with. But this is something that I felt probably could have, okay. To be fair, I'm not saying this is bad. They handled this horribly, because they didn't. Because we did see that Azula did have some wacky, probably she was unstable. She was unstable in some ways. When she's in that beach episode, when she's trying to flirt with that guy, she declares that, they'll basically take over the world together. And when you really think about that, or when she's doing volleyball, she destroys the net with fire, and to her, she was just winning. But she has no concept of normal human behavior. She was raised by freaking Ozai of all people. That guy's a nut. And when you really think about this, it makes sense that when Ozai gave her the title of, Fire Lord, and she's just like, hell yeah, I'm in charge now. And he's like, I'm the Phoenix King. I am now above you, and nothing has really changed. And I can only imagine, though, how betrayed she felt at that. That, that she's given... I mean, I'm sure she's been aiming for the Fire Lord title for a while, and I mean, she knew she was going to get it. It's not like Zuko was going to get it. He spent years being banished. He was exiled, even returning. It's not like they're going to just hand him the Fire Lord title and the throne. And so she knew she had it in the bag, especially from Ozai. She was Ozai's favorite. He always had issues with Zuko for being weak, because he hated compassion. But when he gave her the throne, but then basically made it completely meaningless by creating an entirely new title above Fire Lord. Excuse me. I'm sure it's so easy to see why she lost it. All of a sudden, she was sitting in an empty throne. It didn't matter what she did. Ozai was still in charge. It's more insulting to be given the title and then basically have it be turned into something completely useless by your predecessor, because he's too obsessed with being, his raving ego can't handle not being the number one. And then again, Azula's raving ego can't handle not being the number one. And this is because she's been trained by Ozai to be the best and be number one. Ironically, I think he caused her ultimate breakdown. She wasn't raised with love like Zuko was. Ursa loved Zuko. And when you see some of the flashbacks with her and Zuko, Ursa is a very loving and caring person. Ozai is not. Ozai's a douchebag. Worst father ever. So of course him focusing on Azula and Ursa focusing on Zuko. It's no surprise that they came out so different, so radical to each other. Honestly, I honestly wonder, what did Ursa even see in Ozai? That I really want to see. Like, I really want to see the Fire Lord family when they were younger. I wanted to see when they were happy, because Ozai seems like kind of 100% a dick. Anyway, it's actually, I actually have to say, one of the most emotional moments for me in watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and even rewatching it, is the scene at the end of the finale where Katara basically chains Azula to the grate, and Azula, the mastermind, one of the most threatening villains in the series, one of the most diabolical and terrifying people, who is unfathomably powerful with firebending, could shoot lightning with ease, was reduced to being a screaming mess. Every time I watch that part, it hurts. Azula is such an enjoyable villain that when you see her reduced to nothing, really, she's lost her mind. And she's crying and she's screaming and she's shooting fire out of her mouth. It's pathetic. And you really feel sorry for her. At least I do. I mean, Azula is a product of her environment. She's a product of Ozai, really. She was taught to be that bad. So when her entire world crumbles around her, it's not hard to feel a little sorry for her. And I really do. I mean, I do. Of course, I don't take the comics seriously. the new comics, anything like The Promise or The Search, or whatever BS they're calling them. But I wanted to see Azula. I wanted to see her recover mentally. I wanted to see her be alright. She probably wouldn't get a full-on, like, redemption, but I can definitely see her becoming a Vegeta-like character. Character who was evil, and then, you know, transfers to being sort of the kind of douchey, but still good character. And obviously, there really was no room for that in Avatar: The Last Airbender, because the show was over, and they couldn't really do a whole lot, because they were wrapping up plots. You can't start introducing a whole bunch of new plots. At the very end, the only one they introduced was Zuko going to Ozai saying, "What happened to my mother?" Do they hit the right marks? Yes, I do think that they hit a lot of right marks with Azula's character. She had a brief cameo in book 1. So we knew about her, but it wasn't a speaking role, it was just a quick flashback when Ozai burned Zuko's face. Excuse me. And she's just sitting there going, yeah. And believe you, she's fully introduced in season 2, or book 2. And that's when she takes over Zhao's role as main villain. And she does a terrifyingly good job at it. When you have a character who's supposed to be smart, supposed to be powerful, you have to be careful about not making them a villain too. Characters like Yagami, the Joker from The Dark Knight, Mr. Silva from Skyfall, they're all too smart. It's because those type of characters have protection from the writers. The writer, especially characters like Yagami, are like, they're protected. They have to succeed because they want the villain to succeed. Therefore, their victories don't come off as earned in any way. Whenever Light Yagami escaped or got away or managed to trick his way out of a situation, it didn't feel like he really did anything. It felt like the author just kind of was like, "Oh, you can't be in trouble now. Problem solved." You get a lot of these villains who feel lame, who feel awful, and not in a good way. They don't feel like they feel like they're so smart that nothing can beat them until they're beaten. It's like, because it's like they were just waiting for they're just reading the script and they know what's going to happen, even when they shouldn't know what's going to happen, and their plans are so ridiculously convoluted that there's no way that it would happen. Mr. Silva is a really good example. So when he's such a bad villain in Skyfall, and a very bad movie, is that is like so much of what he does is dictated by the script. It's like Bond chases him into this tunnel, and then this train comes out of nowhere. It's like he had planned it all, except, excuse me, how did he know that train was coming? How did he know? Did he have this all planned out for years that, oh, in case someone chases me, specifically some guy named Bond, I'm going to go down this exact tunnel at this exact time? It's like when you really put thought about into stuff like this, they don't make any sense. Azula isn't like that. She does feel legitimately like she's winning. When she earned the trust and respect of the Dai Li over, I forgot the guy's name who was in charge of it, but when she did that, you would understand that. And when she pulled that card on him, you were just like, oh, When she tricked Zuko, you were like, no, Zuko, don't do that. It didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel like it was plot based. It didn't feel like it was, okay, this has to happen, so she wins. I mean, especially when you give a villain a lot of power, and this is what I like to bring up Albert Wesker. Because Albert Wesker faked his death, came back with superpowers, which are explained. You know, this guy is smart. He's nigh indestructible now. He's got super strength and super speed. How do you fight this guy? And one, how do you write this guy? It's when you take a difference between, say, Code Veronica. That was when he was reintroduced to the series. And then Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5, on his physical abilities, I think did a fantastic job in displaying his speed and his strength. Not so much his intelligence, mainly because Albert Wesker got screwed over so badly in that game, but that's besides the point. When Code Veronica, when he was hurt, when he had a whole bunch of like steel like beams just fall on him, he was hurt. Even with his powers, he had to retreat. So he left. So he was like, I'll get you next time, Chris, and then just leaves. It's like, oh. It's like, I like villains who are smart enough to do that. And I think that was one of the moments that just made me love Albert Wesker as a villain. I'm at a disadvantage here. Bye. And, you know, when you have a villain who is super strong, as well as being super smart, you have to be careful not to turn him into a villain Sue, and thankfully Azula avoided that. Azula, I mean, I think one of the things that really works in her favor is that being a prodigy is actually something deeply ingrained in her character. Almost everything about her has to do with her being a prodigy. So it's not just something they slapped on her just to make her unbeatable in a fight. Because she isn't unbeatable in a fight. And you did show that when she didn't have a bunch of backup, that when she didn't have everything all set up, she could be taken down. Like in Boiling Rock Part 2, when Ty Lee betrays her. Or when Mai betrays her, and then Ty Lee chi blocks her. That was it. She was beaten. And sure, up to that point she was... Excuse me. And up to that point she was, you know, a force to be reckoned with. But then, you know, that, and I think actually, to going back to her insanity thing, I think that was the moment that really started her issues. Because she is so used to having control. She's so used to having control. Azula loves her control. She thought she could control Maya and Ty Lee without any difficulty. Turns out they're not as easy to control as she thought. As Mai says, I love Zuko more than I fear you. And then she was basically going to kill her to prove you should have feared me. Until Ty Lee betrayed her. And all of a sudden she's a immobile mess on the floor. And she can't move. And all of a sudden her illusion of control shattered. And ultimately she kept herself mostly composed until she became the Fire Lord. But yeah, the last half of book 3 was really a whole series of... It was a trauma Congo line for her. A whole bunch of stuff kept happening to her, where people started betraying her, and she's not someone who had ever had any genuine friendships. Ty Lee and Mai, she literally forced Ty Lee into joining them. She made Mai join for her skills, but Mai was just like, sure, why not? I can only imagine the things behind the doors that she threatened them. That if you ever leave, I will kill you. Or, geez, I can only imagine that she used Mai's little brother against her. Oh, you want to leave, so? Oh, well, it'd be terrible if something happened to your brother. Geez, I can actually see her doing that. That's terrifying. I'm going to kill a little baby if you don't. Your little baby brother if you don't do what I say. She's just so terrible. That's what makes her enjoyable as a villain, because you know when the difference between a hero and a villain is that you expect a villain to be a bad person, you expect the hero to be a good person, in some regards, because it's not always so black and white, but you do expect a villain, someone who's not just an antagonist but a villain, to be bad, and she is very bad. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Azula is just a really fun character, and she's enjoyable to watch fight. Of course, there's so much enjoyable to watch fight, and it's enjoyable to watch the fights in Avatar Stamina regardless. But she always stood out. Her blue flames are really, and that I can tell that wasn't just a display of her power. That was also a differentiating her from all the other firebenders. That she stood out above the rest. That she was just that powerful. That she was, even compared to Ozai, she stood out. That was definitely a good visual choice, because it makes her. Because if you zoomed out and there's a whole bunch of firebenders shooting fire, you could spot Azula, because you're like, oh, there's the blue flames. Oh wait, I don't think I finished my point on her being a foil to Zuko. And this is something that if you go down bullet points to their characters, you can actually see that they're opposite in almost a lot of ways. Because while Azula was favored by Ozai, Zuko was favored by Ursa. Her for her strength and him for his compassion. She was the prodigy. He was not. He wasn't that skilled, and when he tried to show off, he ended up falling on his butt and looking like an idiot. I don't know if he ever specifically said this, but he did have to work for his skill. He had to work for everything, and he had to work every day of his life for minimal rewards. And that itself is an important point. He got hardly any rewards for what he did. Whereas Azula did something right, she's probably showered in rewards, because that's what Ozai wanted. You did good, you get rewards. And she was the favorite, so naturally she would get better treatment than Zuko, who was kind of considered the runt. When Lightning Generation comes in, we see that she has full control over this ability. Like when Zuko tries it, he blows himself up every time he tries. It literally blows up in his face, like everything else in his life. But, you know, when you see Iroh basically explaining about separating the energies and recombining them and shooting them out as lightning, we see she just does this anyway. She has no difficulty with this, where Zuko has difficulty. She's completely calm and collected, and Zuko's just a boiling pot of emotion. And even when he was the closest to being a straight-up villain, which was in Book 1, he was still an emotional mess. Hell, he went and rescued Aang as the Blue Spirit. And when you have Azula's, like, even in a straight-up fight, I mean, they're probably, you know, good with straight up martial arts with each other, but Azula would probably come out on top. And when the way they come across is so different. Azula has always come across as elegant and refined, and Zuko came across as rough and abrasive in his personality. Even when he's a good guy in the end of book 3, he's still kind of abrasive, because that's still part of his personality. And even when Azula is at the height of her madness during her Agni Kai with Zuko, she's still very powerful, and despite her insanity at that point, she was still very elegant. Not refined, because she was kind of screaming and going, I'll get you, my pretties. But you could still see that she could blast fire at full power. I mean, that instability would give Zuko an edge, since he got his own inner peace, but yeah, and that's one of the reasons that she works so well as a villain, is not just as a villain for the main gang, but she also serves as the ultimate foil for Zuko. And when Zuko is... And it really helps Zuko develop when you see them interact, when you see them play off each other, and their plots going alongside each other. You really get to see different things, and it's interesting, and I really like Azula's character. She serves so many roles, and that's when you're writing a story like this, you need to have characters serving multiple roles and interacting with multiple different characters and affecting multiple different plots. It really makes things feel organic, because when you have a story and a character literally comes in to just do one thing, it doesn't feel natural, because no one just comes in and does one thing and it disappears forever. It feels, everything's a domino effect, everything's a butterfly effect, everything's going to affect something. So when you see Azula doing multiple things that are affecting numerous plot lines, it's really good writing. Yeah, I just really enjoy Azula's character. I really enjoy her as a villain, and I really enjoyed, even though it's sad, I enjoyed seeing her ultimately fall into madness. I just really hope we get to see her recovering. And honestly, I really want to see Zuko go Batman and try to help her. Put her in a place where she could recover and help her, at the very least, not just regain her sanity, but also gain some real stability in her character and her mind, so that she's not, because every time we saw her in book 2 and book 3 when she was confident, she was a house of cards. When one card was pulled, the entire thing fell down. So, I mean, it'd be nice to see her have some real stability, and I'm sure Zuko would do everything he could to help her. And honestly, that would be a great way if we were able to find Ursa and bring her back and have her, help Azula. That would have been great. I don't consider the search canon. Guys, don't. And I don't want anyone bringing up the search. For the love of God, don't bring up the search. But yeah, I really would have liked to see that. And I really would have liked to see Azula, just see her get help. Because I don't want to see her be a mess forever. Yeah. Well, okay, so I think that's about it. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. This video. Topic video. I've never called these episodes. Anyway. If you want to send me a topic, if you're on YouTube, you can comment below and say whatever topic you want me to talk about. Or if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and put topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure that it's something fictional and it's something specific. And don't give me a why do you like X or what do you feel about Y. I want you to give me something specific, like this. I want you to just give me something I can talk about. And definitely no real-world topics. This is not meant to be, it's not meant to be super serious. Super serious. I almost said super serial. Jeez, that's 7th grade humor right there. Anyway, so yeah, that's it for this video. So thank you for watching.